The serene sounds of the waves crashing on shore, the beautiful and isolated setting of the seaside, the gorgeous views from atop a towering structure as you gaze out into the vast openness of nature. While it may sound like a perfect setting for some, lighthouses often carry their fair share of horror and mystery. Though lighthouses deserve their own roundup video, for this week's haunted location, we are going to look at the Heceta Head Lighthouse. So grab your favorite fireside snack and come sit by the fire while I tell you all about this week's ghosts. I would just like to start by saying I looked up how to pronounce this location, but I'm really sorry if I butcher it. I have read that it is pronounced both as Heceta and Heceta, but I believe that Heceta is the preferred pronunciation. Anyway, please just know that I am trying, both for the pronunciation of the lighthouse and several other locations that will be mentioned in this video. Located on Heceta Head, which is approximately 13 miles north of Florence, Oregon, and 13 miles south of Yachats, Oregon, the lighthouse stands 56 feet tall and 200 feet above the Pacific Ocean. The Heceta Lighthouse is located in the Devil's Elbow State Park and is apparently among one of the best areas for whale, sea lion, and bird spotting. This area was named after Don Bruno de Heceta, who sailed up the west coast on a secret mission from the Queen of Spain. Unfortunately, due to many of his crew members struggling with scurvy, his travels would end just shy of the Columbia River. Prior to its colonial history, the Heceta area was part of the Siuslaw tribe's traditional lands. A century later, mariners requested a lighthouse in the area, and Heceta Head was thought to be the perfect location. The lighthouse was completed on March 30th, 1894, and is one of the last remaining lighthouses on the Pacific coast. Because the lighthouse was so isolated, it went through quite a few keepers in its first several years of service. Olaf Hansen aimed to help with this problem in his 15 years of service by working to make the lighthouse more welcoming. This work included building a vegetable garden, as well as opening a schoolhouse and a post office. The travel was opened up to the Oregon coast in the 1930s when U.S. Highway 101 was completed. This also helped to reduce the feelings of isolation the lightkeepers had felt for so long. Furthermore, electricity was brought to the lighthouse in these years as well, allowing it to become partially automated and thus reduce the number of people needed to run the lighthouse. During World War II, the Coast Guard took control of the lighthouse in order to protect the beaches between Florence and Yachats. Even after World War II ended, the Coast Guard continued to man the lighthouse until it became fully automated in 1963, and the keeper's house was turned over to the U.S. Forest Service. From 1970 to 1995, the U.S. Forest Service leased the building to the Lane Community College to use as a satellite campus. During that time, the lighthouse was placed on the National Registry of Historic Places in 1978. Now in 1995, in order to help share the lighthouse's colorful history, the U.S. Forest Service decided to open up the keeper's quarters as a bed and breakfast, and Mike and Carol Corrigan were chosen as the first innkeepers for the Heceta Lighthouse Bed and Breakfast. Today, the U.S. Forest Service oversees the maintenance of the bed and breakfast, while the Oregon Parks and Recreations Department oversees the upkeep of the actual lighthouse itself. Alright, now I just want to address the potential elephant in the room before we dive into the ghost stories. Are the stories all centered in the keeper's quarters? Yes. Did I initially think those quarters were attached to the lighthouse and not its own separate house on the property? Maybe. Would I have still stitched the lighthouse if I had known better? Probably. Listen, I just really wanted to stitch a lighthouse, and I think it looks nice. And it's still on the property, so throw me a bone because it's cute and I like it, and I hope you do too. Anyway, outside of just an interesting history surrounding the building itself, the lighthouse and the keeper's quarters also hold several spooky tales. Legend has it that in the 1890s, the daughter of one of the assistant innkeepers died by drowning. Later on, when the lighthouse became part of the community college, students playing with a Ouija board determined that either the daughter or the mother were speaking to them and went by the name Rue. It is said that Rue still haunts the property and causes all sorts of paranormal activity. One family reported hearing screams and said that several of their things often moved or just went missing entirely. Now, my favorite story about this particular building is from one worker in the 1970s who was reportedly working in the attic when he noticed a reflection on the glass in front of him. When he turned, he was suddenly facing a ghostly figure of a silver-haired woman in a long, dark dress. After that encounter, he hightailed it out of the building and refused to work in the attic for the rest of his time at the job. Now, there are a number of reasons this is my favorite story. 1, same. 2, I love the idea of telling your boss you can't do work in a specific location because it's haunted, and your boss just being like, fair enough. Do you know how many times I would have tried to pull that card in my life? Anyway, another account tells of one day when the glass to a window in the attic was broken, and the couple overseeing the house at the time claimed to hear noises in the attic throughout the whole night, only to find the glass swept up neatly into a pile in the attic the next morning. If you ask me, this attic ghost is just a particular lady. Maybe she just didn't like whatever work was being done by the maintenance man, so she scared him away. And when the window broke and the owners at the time didn't immediately come to clean it up, she was just like, well, I guess I'll do it myself. I'd be interested to find out more about this ghost story, honestly. The inn also keeps a book of ghost stories that guests can write in. Many often cite instances of objects moving in their room, but some have reported seeing gray, misty figures on the property and even say they have felt a paranormal presence in bed with them late at night. And that gets another Olivia, no thanks. Alright, y'all, that is this week's episode on the Heceta Head Lighthouse. To complete this research, I used a number of resources, including the Heceta Lighthouse website, the National Registry of Historic Places, the Oregon State Parks website, Oregon Encyclopedia, Wikipedia, PBS, and an article from the Columbian newspaper. So, what do you think? Would you dare to spend a night at this spooky B&B? For me personally, both the ocean and heights are some of my top fears, and adding the paranormal into the mix is just asking for a restless evening. If you've ever stayed the night in this B&B or have any paranormal experiences in the Heceta Head Lighthouse, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Thanks for sticking around, and if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to the page. You can also find me on Instagram and Etsy at Sit by the Fiber, and those will be linked down below. See ya!